Good afternoon to all of you tuning in to Shift in 2020. For our third session of the day, we would like to welcome our guest speaker, Mr. Alex Zarrabi. He will give us a presentation on the topic, Our Innovative Future with Responsible Biometrics. As in all of the sessions taking place during Shift in 2020, please be aware that all attendees are muted. If you have any questions, notes, or remarks, we kindly ask you to make use of the question function within your GoToWebinar dashboard. Our moderators will then deliver these to the speakers. Before we hand over the floor to Mr. Zarrabi, we would like to talk to you about his areas of expertise and background that got him to where he is today. Over the course of 14 years, he has led high-tech ventures as CEO and General Manager. He is currently in his 7th year as the CEO of Touchless Biometric Systems, a Swiss high-tech gem and inventor of the unique 3D Touchless Fingerprint, which is also the world's most accurate since 2010. Touchless Biometric Systems holds multiple patents and is behind some of the world's largest biometric projects. It moreover equips over 90% of 4- and 5-star hotels in Switzerland. Mr. Zarrabi graduated with a degree in telecommunications engineering at the Swiss Institute of Technology, a degree in general management at the Harvard Business School, and holds a board director's degree from the IMD. Now that you know a little bit more about his background, it is time to give the stage and find out how biometrics are set to transform our lives. Please take it away, Mr. Zarrabi.
Good afternoon. Okay, so I guess you hear me. I'm Alex Zarrabi. I'm the CEO of Touchless Biometric Systems, which is also known as TBS in short. And I'm going to speak about the innovative future that we can have all with responsible biometrics. And I will start actually by mentioning a story. In 2007, I was an avid technology fan, and I bought this phone, which was a Google phone. It was the first one. And I started I unpacked it, started charging it. I couldn't wait for it to be charged, and as I took it out of the charger, turned it on, it asked me to agree in the terms and conditions, which surprisingly I read, that this phone would know and transmit my location, my position, any time, all the time to Google. And I actually switched off that phone. I was so shocked that I never used that phone. And fast forward now a decade later, of course I use smartphones, and this is statistics of 10 years actually just after that first phone was released, where 7 out of 10 smartphone apps share data with third-party services, including our location and actually much more. So, and I have them on my phone right now in my pocket. So the point here is that there is in our acceptance change that happens with technology. What we find sometimes shocking after some years becomes acceptable. But there is a price to that. And it's important to ask ourselves as citizens if we want to pay this price, if it's acceptable to us or not. And as a person who is directly involved with biometrics, it's a question that I find very important for ourselves to ask and to think of what kind of world we want to create for our children in the future. So very briefly, this is not about TBS, but just to give you an understanding of where we come from. So we are a Swiss company which invented the unique 3D fingerprint. It's actually a fingerprint that where you hold your finger in the air, there's no contact, and it is actually the most accurate since 2010. We manufacture here in Switzerland our readers, and they are installed in many hospitality projects, among others, of course. Normally, we do high security places like nuclear power plants and so on, but we have actually a lot of hospitality customers using TBS. And so these are some of the examples of one of our partners, very well known in hospitality, Mirrors. You might have heard of them. I think they equip about in excess of 90% of five-star hotels of Switzerland in the back of the house for time and attendance. So there is a vast usage of biometrics in also the hospitality, but of course in many other sectors as well. Now, to the point that I was making about where we're going with technology and how technology changes lives. On the left side, this is one phase of biometrics. It's the phase where we unlock our phones. And if you're like me, I think many of us really love the convenience of not having to type a PIN. You just get out your phone out of your pocket, it opens, and at the same time, it is secure for if I leave it on the table. On the other side, on the right side of the screen, you will see something that sends shivers down our spines for many of us, which is how face recognition is used by some countries to rate citizens and to follow their locations, activities, sometimes with cameras. And this is, for many of us, it's a completely across the red line. And so clearly there is a red line for many of us in here between a usage of biometrics that we like and one that we would not necessarily want for ourselves and for our children and for the future. So where is this line? From our experience in biometrics, we find that there are two safeguards that are really important to implement if we want to have the convenience of biometrics, but not have the drawbacks and things that some of us take issue with. So the one safeguard is to convert the biometrics immediately to data and use data while erasing the biometrics. Let me explain a bit in detail. It gets a little technical here, but I try to keep it very simple. This is how biometrics is captured. You take, you put, for instance, your finger on a platen, and then it gives some low quality image. This quality is enhanced by the processing, and then the minutiae, which are characteristic, interesting points of the fingerprint, such as the endings or bifurcations, are found, and then the distance between those fingers, those points of reference, are measured. And this is called a template. So this is, it's not the fingerprint itself, it's actually some points with some numbers. And if you do biometrics well, then you encrypt that in a non-reversible way those points, not the image, of course, not only the points. And this gives a series of data. And this data becomes a signature for a person. So we have moved from a biometric into data. I see some comment on joining the conference. Is that, should I follow? Yes, okay, sorry. So I continue then on the, so we moved from the left side from biometric and to the data. And it's essential that then we erase all the left part, which are the biometric of people, within the capture process. So this capture process is only done once. Normally, when you go to when you use a biometric system, there is day one, you go and enroll yourself, which means you apply your fingerprint and on a device for the first time, and this fingerprint is transformed into this data that you see on the right side, and then the data is stored. And every time then you will use this biometric device later, the biometric will be compared to this data set. So the very, very important one is that this process is done in a very professional way, and the system erases your biometrics and only manipulates data. You see that this encryption has an arrow shape to it because it is irreversible. There are obviously reversible encryptions, but what we use, for instance, at TBS is an irreversible encryption, very strong one. That means that we will take a fingerprint and turn it into a series of numbers, but we cannot from these numbers go back ever to your biometric. And this encryption has a key, which is every of our devices has a different private key. So even if one device were compromised, you can just change this data key, and then you get another encryption. But at the end of the day, the point is that no image is stored, no biometric image is used, it's only data. And we can easily discard, change data. And that does not compromise your identity. Okay, so that's the first safeguard that is very important. There is nowhere in a biometric system any picture, any real biometric image that is stored, only data. And the second one that we believe is very important is that it is only consent based. And namely, that equates to not using a camera to take identity, because cameras, as we know, they can be up on the ceiling, and anyone in the room is captured without necessarily wanting it. It's this Big Brother scenario that a lot of citizens sometimes speak against, and this is also very important to leave the consent to users to be identified. If we don't give them consent, then it becomes, we're on a slippery slope. So that is what we believe is important for a biometric system, for not to actually not reduce the freedom of people, but to give them, to expand their freedom, to expand their capabilities, and to expand their comfort of life through biometrics. Use the good and without getting into the limitations. And inside our own company, I apologize, I couldn't actually remove the TBS logo up there. It's again, it's not. I want to speak to you about biometrics and innovation and what it will mean for our future. Also, it has a lot of impact on hospitality and other places, not specifically about the company, but I couldn't remove the logo from the template. That's just the reason it's there. But now I get to something that we do actually still in our company is we pledge that we use only consent-based biometrics, that there is no images taken, the data is encrypted, etc. That we don't sell the data, none of that. And it is very important for our future that we try to make sure that when we use biometrics as users, we demand that kind of assurance from the providers to make sure that we do not compromise the identity of people, but only use their data, that it can be discarded. So in that sense, also as a citizen, I find rules like GDPR and other initiatives to promote the privacy of citizens absolutely wonderful. Of course, it puts some work on the shoulders of people like us, but it is a good thing for everyone. I will play a video here to now give you some insight into what the technology, the new technology, is doing, and to go to the second part of this presentation, which is about how responsible biometrics that we just saw, how this responsible biometrics can improve and bring new services to hospitality and to other places. So this is one reader. I was telling you about the 3D touchless, and I hope this video can play. And it's actually a reader where you hold a finger in a cavity for a few seconds, but there is no contact inside the cavity, and it opens the door. So this is obviously hygienic, and it's also extremely accurate. So I will spare you the whole video, but the point is that this is a touchless fingerprint where you hold the finger in the air, basically in this cavity, and it scans the finger with light, and you're not touching anything. So also in terms of limiting the spread of germs in areas of hospitality and so on, there are technologies like this, or the face and iris and other technologies that are interesting. I show that because face and iris are known. Fingerprint is believed to be always with contact, but it is not, as you can see. Another technology that is becoming very trendy is to use biometrics for high processing of people in very crowded areas. For instance, in an airport. For instance, in queues where people enter a building. And there is a problem to process people very fast with devices like the one you see on the picture, on the screen. It's not so fast. When people come and they just walk in, they have to slow down. So the only technology that is available today is using using CCTV cameras and look at and take a video of people entering and then recognize them on that video. And this, as we mentioned before, is something where there are a lot of legal issues. There are a lot of discomfort for users because they don't want to be recognized by cameras that can be anywhere and that can recognize them without their consent. So there, this is we sat and thought, what could we do to make processing of people possible in a high speed and also in a hygienic manner, contactless, without compromising their consent. Also, while always requiring their consent, so we keep with our commitment to responsible biometrics. So the video, we thought and we came up with something that is in the next video. Unfortunately, this is highly confidential because it's not something that is currently out. I cannot show you the device in detail, but what you will see is how fast it processes people. You will see a queue of people coming, and the device will make a flash and process them. This should come next year. So this will be, we believe, not only the fastest biometric on the market globally, but also one that is filling this gap that for processing people without using cameras and while ensuring their consent when they want to go fast through some area and be identified without stopping as they walk. So this, I will just conclude then on the future that we can have with biometrics, knowing that we can make biometrics responsible and we should demand it. So we get the advantage without risking, identity theft and this kind of, or surveillance, or any other thing we feel uncomfortable with. Technology can do that, of course, this way. It has to be part of our demand from technology providers. And there is technology, as you can see, and I hope we will not be the only ones, by the way, because we believe that this technology is beyond a single company. It's about the society we want to create for our children. And if more people join in and create similar technologies where the consent is required and biometrics is used with the right ethics, then the benefits that this can bring to our lives are just incredible. So picture the air travel for hospitality and tourism, the check-in that will be with biometrics very fast, the bag drop-off, all of these things that we do, but we still need to put a passport, an ID type, all sorts of codes that can go in a breeze. Just you wave your hand. That's what this device did in the previous video. You just show your hand and you just get checked and you can drop your baggage. For boarding, for security screening, instead of long queues, just make those things so much more efficient. Workforce management is another example in for managing shifts, application of laws. We see actually some of our customers are one of the biggest fast food chains in the world. They use that for managing their shift, protection of employees also, because the laws are inside the system. So if someone is under 18, there will be some different rules and so on. And it makes also management of restaurants much more convenient and easy. Again, in hospitality, you might want to offer some customized service. So you can imagine someone accessing the building from the parking and then just opens the door without touching anything by touchless biometrics, and the front desk receives a message that this person is coming, and you can prepare custom services for them, such as their favorite newspaper or their favorite drink or whatever kind of customized service you want to provide to them. Hygiene is, of course, another benefit where people come to your institutions. If they use a gym, if they are at the main entrance, there's a VIP area. You can bring a touchless experience to them, which is at the moment with COVID, of course, very much on the minds of people, and improve their experience. And there are many more applications outside of hospitality. There is payments, for instance. The bottom right corner is a payment system Amazon is testing for grocery stores in the United States. Healthcare, the picture shows one of our ads for the hospital of the tomorrow, where you come, you don't touch, you don't have to be at the desk, you just identify and the elevator comes and you get messages via your mobile phone. So the experience of healthcare gets much faster, more convenient. It can apply also to education in many ways, improving that in an ethical way. Shared offices, cars you get in, if it's Madame, Monsieur, the car adapts to the right person if there's some biometric there. Also to unlock the car. Facility management is using biometrics as right now we have actually one of our customers using for all Switzerland biometrics for their processes in facility management. Smart homes, I'm building a house, I will have my blinds and so on connected to biometrics. So there's a whole host of applications that the very near future can bring to improve our experience in very different fields. So I hope this gives you an understanding of the importance of doing biometrics in a responsible way. And once this is done, the many benefits that as citizens, as private people, we can have, or as business and experienced providers, we can provide to our customers.
Well, thank you, Alex. That's very interesting indeed. Lovely. We're just going to open the floor up for questions. All right, let me start off with the question that I got from Dr. Lena Wong. She says, Alex, thank you for being here and your generosity to showcase us the latest technology and the ethical issues surrounding its applications. As a psychologist, I need to ask this question. What do you think about scanning customers' facial emotions expression to measure their satisfaction by comparing their emotional states, say before and after transaction, without recording their identity?
Oh, very good question. So yeah, we believe that people should be entitled to know what is happening around them, so they're not abused in some there is no abuse of technology towards their privacy. I believe that if they're smiling or not and so on, and this is used, maybe there is a sign that mentions that, and these are also things that are eventually not necessarily something that will impact their identity. They're not at risk of fraud, but this is used for the customer experience improvement. That I don't see that as a problem, but I believe that it should be also known somehow to the customers that in some way that we use also their mood. It's maybe it will become something standard in the future, and people will accept it the way we accept today the positioning to be taken. But we were at least asked about this, and I believe it should be also somewhere made known to users.
I mean, to some extent, perhaps we can already say that to some extent, this is already happening, and I mean, maybe more in some places than in others. I don't know whether Europe maybe it's still a bit on the back end of that, but I mean, we're already having lots of places that are having full-on facial recognitions. We're talking about Minority Report, which looked as a far cry at the time, but who knows what might now happen. We're not yet walking down the street and seeing personalized advertisements, but it seems to be that could possibly be reality in the not so far future. I mean, do you feel that there's any caveats when it comes to the usage of biometrics? I mean, we're obviously having biometrics introduced as well heavily, although this was not touchless by Apple, indeed, what you were showing in the beginning. They're using Face ID. Do you feel that it's safer to go about using the biometrics when it comes to using the fingerprint or the scanner, what we're having with the Face ID, and even now LiDAR scanners that are coming around? We're talking not just about you automatizing your house, your shutters or whatsoever, but also robots. I mean, what do you feel like? We're talking AI robots that are cleaning the floor and stuff like this that are now equipped with AI and LiDAR.
So there are two elements. Again, I think these are fundamental, which we underlined in the presentation, is that first of all, people have to be willing to do that. It's important to ask people's consent.
How does one do that? Playing devil's advocate, because
yeah. Well, depends on the application, but if you are using, and if the application does not provide that option, then in my opinion that is questionable, because the problem is not the good things. The problem is that when you do, if you leave the door open, then abuses can happen. And there's nothing wrong about improving customer satisfaction. On the contrary,
right.
But then other things can happen that we don't want. So I'm certainly not a person who wants to live in the past. It's not at all the path of my life, but I believe that we need to.
Are we doing this? Are we doing this willingly, or is legislation just not catching up fast enough because at this pace of what technology is currently evolving, we are seeing much more applications going out into the marketplace, into the world, that people not necessarily give consent about, that are still being need, or that have the high need to be regulated by governments, but they are currently not catching up. But we saw this as well lately with the big five going to the US Congress or the Senate to be questioned. I mean, I'm all for this, obviously, but I'm just saying I want to see if you feel that there's maybe also potentially what are really because you cannot always give your consent necessarily for being out in the general world. Look at cookies, look at the way that we're having advertisements being pushed to people. And the majority of the people, with all due respect, are not necessarily aware of what they need to click at all times.
Right. But it's important to give them the option. And you're right. Legislation comes on the back of technology. Technology goes ahead. And that's why I always emphasize to our engineers and to our teams and to my colleagues in the industry that it starts by us, the people who create the technology, to think of the world we want to leave behind. And legislation will catch up. And as we know, there are some companies that will do things that are borderline, and legislation will come to correct that, but this will take a lag. But we see a lot of legislation coming around biometrics. Actually, San Francisco banned face recognition in public spaces a year ago, and sorry, a year and a half ago.
Right.
The European Union put a moratorium of 5 years last year on face recognition in public spaces. The UK
Right.
banned it. So it is not as prevalent, and it's not that everything is possible.
No, and I think that's obviously the challenge that we're facing right now, you know, how this will be going hand in hand. And I mean, I use face recognition, I use biometrics with my former iPhone. Right now, I have an iPhone that does the face recognition. But it's crazy how fast things are going. I just have another question coming in from Ms. Favrebul, who's asking, do you see TBS products being used for locks and switches in planes, also in private, or switches in private homes, cars, etc., within the foreseeable future?
Switches.
Yeah, like TBS kind of projects for locks and switches in private homes, whether that being obviously maybe you can enter a door like that, or that basically we're going to be automating our entire house. Do you see these kind of products coming back as well within our normal household, everyday life?
Absolutely. This is half of our business, and many people in this industry do access control. So they secure access to places. And of course, us as manufacturers ourselves, I'm building a house. I will put it in my own house, no question. And my colleague put it in his house. And now when he comes to the office, where we don't have this because it's not our
It's
premise,
a nuisance.
he forgets his keys, because at home he just got used not to carry his keys anymore on him. So yeah, this convenience is great. Absolutely.
And do you feel that the big electronic or the big technologies companies are heading in the right direction, the way they're using AI, the way they're using these kind of products, whether that being biometrics or any other way? Would you say you rather go with a fingerprint, whether that being touch or touchless, as opposed to using, for instance, any other application of just being able to scan quickly from far away already? You said that's not really something that we feel is perhaps to be applied in a big space, but what you feel that what is the best way you think going forward? Obviously, you're representing TBS. You said, if I could take away this little icon here, I can just speak about the actual technology. But I mean, if you take off the TBS hat and just look at it from a consumer point.
Yeah, it's again, it's not about TBS. So I'm really trying to talk about the industry at large, and there were a lot of hype. There was a lot of hype around AI, actually, face recognition, and legislation came to counter that, as mentioned before. And we see actually companies that have a big name like Microsoft, IBM, and so on, who IBM last year they 2 years ago, actually pulled out of a major show, security show in the United States, because of reputational risk for AI usage on cameras. So I think companies that have some degree of responsibility and brand also equity will be cautious and try to promote precisely a responsible way of using technology.
Great. And I think that's a very good way to round off this this presentation. Alex, I would like to thank you very much for the time that you've spent with us here today. And it's very interesting, not just to see also where this this space is going to take us, because like I said, you know, I would be one of those people that would be forgetting their keys. I mean, I'm paying now. I pay touchless as well. I don't tend to wear my wallet around me. I have everything in a digital vault, so I'm all for this stuff. So I'm very interested to see where this is going, and hopefully we can start to implement this indeed into our house as well on a bigger, grander scale, a bit easier. So that's great. I would like to thank you very much, and I would like to tell all the people that are still with us is that we are having another session that will be taking place at 3 p.m. Central European time, which is going to be a roundtable discussion, an industry regenerated hosted by Oceanic Global and Andrea Chakravarti, our Dean of Students. And if you have not registered for that session yet, we do urge you to please do so. So go out and register, and we love to see you all there. And well, that leaves me just to say once again, thank you, Alex, for being with us. We hope you have a pleasant day. Please join our other sessions, and we'd love to continue this thought-provoking process.
Thank you, Francis. Thank you all for attending.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.